In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can change the color of any object using Lightroom. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time here, my name is Dan Quintero and I make videos about all sorts of things related to photography. And today we're going to talk about how you can change the color of any object using Lightroom. So in my last video, I showed you how you can do this using Photoshop. And if you want to look at that video, I'll link it up here somewhere. But I realized that not everybody uses Photoshop. You may not have Photoshop. You might have a slow computer that doesn't run well with Photoshop. And if you don't have to go into Photoshop, it's just going to save you a lot of time if you could just do everything inside of Lightroom. So let's just quickly talk about the practical uses of this technique, because you can use it to just have a lot of fun. You can make things like, purple pumpkins, and you can make blue limes and things like that. But there are some actual practical uses that you can do, or that I use anyway in my business. The first one would be color correction. So sometimes the camera will not pick up the right colors just off the bat. And so with this technique, you can go in there and you can tweak the colors to try and make them look a little bit more realistic. Now, in those situations, normally I will also use something like a color checker passport, which is a calibration tool that you can use to ensure that you get the right colors. And I have made a video about that, by the way. I'll link it somewhere here if you want to check it out. But then the second thing is that most of my clients come in to see me for a headshot photograph, and sometimes they just don't bring the right clothes. So they pick out the colors that just don't work with either the skin tone, or they're just a little bit too bright and sort of divert the attention away from the subject. And so with this technique, I can go in there and I can tweak those colors, I can turn them down, or I can change it altogether, like completely change the color and come up with something that is a little bit more appropriate for the type of shot that they're after. Anyway, let's jump into Lightroom and I'll show you how this works. Okay, so here we are inside of Lightroom, and I've got 3 images that I'm going to show you this technique with. The first 2 are pretty straightforward. The last one though has some color contamination, which is something that you're going to run into, and I'm going to show you how you can get around those types of challenges. So the version that I've got of Lightroom at the moment is, let's have a look, 13.0.2. Which is December 2023. So if you haven't updated, make sure that you do, because otherwise your interface is going to look a little bit different to mine. Okay, let's get stuck into it. So we've got this image here. We've got some beautiful looking houses here. We've got this blue one here in the middle where we're going to change the color of the blue. So we are in the develop module, and on the right hand side where all the controls are, I want you to go down to color mixer. Okay, now this is what you're normally, I guess, used to seeing, which you've got the hue, saturation, and luminance, and you can do some work in here. But what we're going to do is we're going to move onto this area here, which is brand new. Well, it's been around for a couple of months now, but it's pretty new, and it's called point color. So we're going to click on this, and what this allows you to do is to pick a color that we want to change. So when you click on there, you'll get the little eyedropper tool. So we're going to click the eyedropper tool so we can select it, and I'm just going to hover around any part here where the blue color is, and I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice that it creates a color swatch over here on the right hand side. And we can use these 2 dots, these 2 markers, so this one here and this one here, to control both the saturation, the color, and also the luminance of the color that we picked. So here we are going to move this around now, and you'll see that the color of the building is changing. Okay, so it matches what we've got on the swatch there as we move through the different colors. And you can pick a completely different color. Now, one of the things that this doesn't show you is all of the colors. Okay, so how do you get around that? Well, all you got to do is you're seeing part of the spectrum of colors. And so if we wanted to expand that, say, to the right, so let's say that we wanted to get some red. Currently, we don't see any red. We get this sort of purplish color, but we don't see any red. Well, red is aligned towards the right-hand side of this palette, which is towards the reddish purple zone. So all we're going to do is we're going to go and change it to purple, and then we're going to click on the eyedropper tool again, and then we're going to click on the purple, and then we get a brand new swatch. So we're going to slide that all the way to the right, and now we're getting a sort of pinkish color. So we're almost to the red part of the spectrum. So once we get to the pink, I'm going to click the eyedropper tool again, and now you can see that I've reached the red section. It's still a little bit pinky, so we're going to do it again. We're going to go in there, about there, and then we're going to select the color again, and now we get a nice true red. And you'll notice that as I move this the marker here to the left and to the right, it changes the color. But if I go up and down, it'll change the saturation of that color. Okay, and then on the right hand side you've got this slider here, and that's going to control the luminance, so the brightness level of that color. So I feel that like this is a little bit too red. It doesn't look realistic enough, so I'm just going to bring it down a little bit, and maybe around about there. And now we've got something that looks very realistic. I'm going to click on the before and after. So we had blue before, and now we've got red, and that is essentially the technique that we're going to use now. I'll just point out that although we've got this interface here with where we can hover over the color sachet, and we can move the dots around. We've also got the sliders down the bottom, so this does exactly the same thing. The hue shift controls the hue, and you can see that it moves the marker left and right. As we said before, you've got your saturation, which is up and down, okay, and then you've got your luminance, which is your brightness, and that is controlled by this slider as well. So you can use the 3 sliders in the bottom, or you can use the markers. It's completely up to you. But the results is exactly the same no matter which one of those techniques you use. Okay, so that's the first image, and hopefully you were able to follow along. But I wanted to ask you for a favor. If you are enjoying this video and you would like to support me, it'd be great if you could click the like button. And also, if you want to see more content like this, click the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you'll be notified when I upload a new video. Anyway, let's jump onto the second photo. Okay, moving on to the second image now. And this one here is going to be a little bit trickier because we are going to change the color of her jumper. And the jumper is red, and we know that red is present in skin tones. And so if we use the same technique as before, I'm going to grab the eyedropper tool, I'm going to drop it on something that's red, and then I'm going to shift the hue of the color. You will see that it also affects her face because skin tone is made up of different colors which contain red. So we're shifting the red in her face, which we don't want to do that. So we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to do this by creating a layer. So we're going to click on the masking tool, the masking button up there inside of Lightroom, and then we are going to let it analyze the person. Okay, so it's picked up that there's a person there, so we're going to click on the person, and then we're going to wait until we get the different options for the different selections that we can make. And in this case, we're going to select clothes. Okay, so we're going to click on that, and we are going to create a mask there. And now you'll see that we have a mask that is specifically just for the jumper. So now when we move, when we drop the eyedropper tool and select that red, when we shift the hue now, it's not affecting her face, it's only affecting the color of the jumper. So then I can go in there and play around with that if I want to make it like a more of a pinkish color, and then we'll remove some of the saturation, and that looks nice and clean. So that's one way to get around some of the colors where the color may be present in other parts of the photograph and you want to exclude that. And we're going to be looking at that now in the third image, which is a little bit more complicated. So we'll jump onto that now. Okay, on to the last image now, which is going to be the trickiest one because we have all sorts of colors that are spread out throughout the whole image. So just like before, if we change the color of one particular building in here, then most likely you are going to impact the color on some of the other buildings. Now, before, in the previous image, we did a selection of the subject and we selected the clothes. Obviously, we don't do the same thing here because we're talking about buildings here, not a person. And so what we're going to do is a different technique. We're going to use the brush tool instead, but the approach is exactly the same. So we again are going to start off by clicking on the masking button up here. And now what we're going to do is we are going to select the brush tool. Okay, now we could do a selection of the object, but I just want to show you how to do it with the brush tool, but the approach would be exactly the same if you selected the actual object themselves. So for this one, we are going to change the color of this building on the left here, the yellow building. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to paint using a mask tool over the top of that, and you may not be able to see it too much because I've got my brush set to a low flow, but you'll see that in a second. You start seeing that it's turning green, and that's just because I am painting over the top of it. I'm not going to, this is not me changing the color to green. This is just an actual selection itself. Okay. So if you look up here in the top right hand corner where you've got the masking settings, all the different masks, you'll see that the color of my masking has been set to green. I did that because sometimes I find that red is a little bit difficult to see, but if you wanted to change that, yours is probably already on red, but if you wanted to change that, you can just click on these little 3 dots here, go to color overlay settings, and you'll see a little box that pops up. Now it may be you might get the same thing that I do, where it pops out down here and it's almost, you can almost miss it if you don't know that it's there. So you just have to bring it up a little bit, and then you can just change the color of the actual masking color. Okay, so this is the color that shows up when you've painted over the top of it. So we are going to let's change it to a blue. Actually, get rid of that, and we are going to continue just painting over this building over here. Okay, and it doesn't matter if you go over it a little bit over the edges, you will be able to clean that up later on. So okay, so that is now all nice and painted, and now any adjustment that we make is going to be applied only to the section that we have that we've painted. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. Having selected and having painted over that building, I'm now once again going to go over to the point color, the sample color spot metering, or the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to drop it on this yellow. And now if I change the color of that one building, okay, it's only affecting that one building. Now if I didn't do that, it would affect everything else that's got yellow. So these buildings on the right, even the orange one, which as you know, orange contains yellow, everything else would also shift in color as well, which we don't want to do. If I wanted to then apply this effect to a different building, let's say this building here on the right hand side, all I have to do is I can just continue painting on my the mask. Okay, and if I did that, if I just painted over the top of it, you can see that the building itself is actually changing to a more pinkish sort of tone. Okay, so, and that is because we are expanding the selection or the mask. So by applying an extra section in the mask, it will also affect that. So let's go in and change the colors. And you can see that as I change the color, the hue of the colors and the brightness and the saturation, you can see that it's only affecting those 2 areas that I painted in, which is a really good way to control that. Now, if I change my mind and I wanted to remove that, obviously I can just paint over the top of it by holding the Alt key or the Option key and painting over the top of it. You can see that my marker changes to a, I'll bring it out here so you can see it more clearly. But if I hold the Alt key or the Option key, then my paintbrush changes to a minus, from a plus to a minus, which means it's going to subtract from the mask. So we can do that. Let me hold down the Option key. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And then what I'll do is I will brush over the top of it. And essentially what I'm doing is erasing that selection. So I'll make it really, really obvious here. And then I will remove that. As you can see, it's removing the effect. Obviously I'm applying a ridiculous amount of color here, but it's just so that you get the idea of how this works. So as I move around now, once again, only the building on the left is being affected, which is a really good way to control the colors. Okay, I hope that made sense and you were able to follow along. But if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. That is the best place to get in touch with me. Otherwise, you can reach me through any of the usual social media platforms, and you're going to find all the links in the description. So that is everything for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.